Welcome back to Greg's Carport. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at a piece of equipment that came with most cars in the 50s, 60s, and up through the mid 70s, and it was one of the most dangerous things you could use. Let's check it out.
You stupid car!
This is what we're talking about. We're talking about a bumper jack. In my opinion, one of the most dangerous jacks you can use when it comes to changing tires. Now, these came in most cars, probably late 40s, 50s, 60s, up through the mid 70s. And they were very simple how they worked. There was basically four pieces. You had the handle, which also worked as your lug wrench to remove the lugs off your wheels. Now, this is a replacement out of one of my other cars. It actually doesn't fit this jack, but it'll give you an idea of what the original handle would have looked like. You had the base that the jack itself fit into. You had the rail here. Now, the thing about it is, look at the rail. Look at these teeth, how they're not very deep, right? Well, that's what's holding up your car. And then you had the mechanism right here. Now, the mechanism had a hook on the front, right next to that little pad, this hook right here. And that hook would fit into a slot on the bumper. The mechanism itself worked when this was in this up position, the jack would go up. If you put it in the down position, the jack would go down. And it worked like this. With the idea is you had your wrench, your lug nut wrench in this slot right here to give you the leverage to move it up and down. And then when you wanted to take the car back down, you moved it to the down position and it would go back down. All right, let me get this hooked up to the car and you can actually see how these jacks worked. All right, before we get started, just a reminder, the car is in park, the parking brake is on, the emergency brake, and I have wheel chocks. I've got one here behind this tire and one behind this tire. All right, so to get started, we're going to set the foot of the jack so it's facing, the larger part's facing towards the car. And then we're going to take the main part of the jack and we're going to set it in there. And there it goes. So next what we're going to do is we're going to put, you can see that the hook is too high for the slot. So we're going to put the jack in the down position. And we'll work the jack down until it's about the right height. Then we're going to move this back into the up position. Move the jack to the slot. And then we're going to jack it up until it starts. And we're going to make sure the jack is nice and straight. We'll put a little pressure on it like this. And then we'll put the handle in there and we'll really start to jack this thing up, and you can see how far you actually have to jack this thing up just to get that wheel off the ground. Now, if you remember, I told you this handle is out of a different car. Somewhere along the ways we lost the handle that goes to this jack, and it's actually too big to fit in here. So in a pinch, you can use a good heavy-duty screwdriver. All you're trying to do is get some leverage. Now, as you get towards the top, it's going to get tougher to get it up. So let's see if we got that tire off the ground yet. No, we got a little bit further to go. Now, the reason that people didn't like these things is because your whole car is just on this rail. And there you can see we got the tire off the ground 1 inch. But you can see how this works, that instead of like a floor jack, which came later and kind of pushed the car up, with these jacks we're pulling the car up. And just imagine if you're out on a highway and you got 18-wheelers whizzing by you and your car's being held up by that. Like I said, they work Tens of thousands of tires were changed with jacks just like this, and they're still being used today. But you're better off using a floor jack instead of one of these. So there you can see how the good old-fashioned bumper jack lifts a car. It works. There's nothing wrong with it, but they are dangerous. Most people who use these will tell you they're dangerous, but sometimes you have to use them. But I would definitely recommend that you use a floor jack instead of using one of these. One of the problems that people had when it came to these bumper jacks is a lot of the people who lived up in climates where you get a lot of snow and they use salt and stuff to take care of that. Well, the salt and stuff would get into the bumpers and would get into those slot areas, and when you took your car up, if you had rust in there, it could act, that hook that we saw originally could actually rip part of that bumper right there, and it could cause the car to fall. As with any jack, if you're using this, make sure you're using floor stands, jack stands, if you're going to get underneath the car. So let's see how it goes back down. So remember I told you there's a little lever on this side. If when it's up in this position, it's up. When it's down, it's down. Now, one of the most dangerous parts of raising or lowering is actually lowering the car, because you're going down. Remember how I told you the teeth on this aren't very good? Sometimes they had a habit, they would skip one or two as they went down. So again, be careful. It's the same principle. Lift it up. Now it goes down. Up, then down. And then you just simply do that. But remember, just take your time. Think about safety first, and you'll eventually get it back down. Like I said, they work just fine. You can use them. It's okay. Then once you get down to a low point where it's going to start, it's kind of like a floor jack. You get it to a certain point, you have to push it down by yourself. But anyway, so that's a bumper jack. So there you have it. That's how a bumper jack works. And I hope you can kind of see from the video the fact that they actually were a dangerous thing to use. So some of you might be wondering, so what happened to bumper jacks? Why did they go away? Well, two of the main reasons was, the first reason was they were actually dangerous. They were dangerous for people to use. And the second and the most important reason was, starting in 1973, the U.S. government told car manufacturers that their cars had to withstand a 5-mile-per-hour crash to the bumpers without any damage being done to the car. And so what the manufacturers started doing is they started putting great big huge pieces of rubber around their bumpers. They put little tiny shock absorbers behind the bumpers so that the bumper would kind of flex a little bit when it got hit. And by doing that, they removed the bumper from directly being attached to the frame. The car that we just saw, that bumper is attached directly to the frame. So if you lift up the bumper, you lift up the frame. Well, starting in the later cars in the 70s, that wasn't the case. If you lifted up the bumper, chances are you're just going to damage the bumper. And so that's what happened with the bumper jacks. They went away, and all of a sudden you started seeing like more scissor jacks that you would get with your cars to lift them up. So that's where bumper jacks went. So I hope some of you old timers like me enjoyed seeing the old bumper jack being used again, and maybe some of you younger guys and girls who are into classic cars, maybe you've never seen one used. Well, that's how they work. If you liked the video, which I hope you did, I hope you'll watch again. We got other videos up on other stuff. And if you did like it, I hope you subscribe. And in the meantime, I hope you all have a great day.